Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for another very special edition of WOWSA Live with our host, Ned Dennison. Ned?
Hello, everyone. I'm the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. A few weeks ago, we had Herman Wilmsey on a call. He was in the very first class in IMSHA, and today we have Marty Sinn, who was also in that first class. Marty, hello and welcome.
Thank you so much. Hello to you.
Marty, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and your early swimming? You were kind of born at the end of World War II and grew up in this period kind of before the Vietnam War in the United States. Some people will say that was the best time ever to be young in the United States. You'll have an opinion on that, and talk a little bit about the camp you attended in Canada, which has become famous over the decades.
Okay. Well, first, I grew up in a small college town, Ann Arbor, Michigan. I had two sisters. I was the middle sister. My older sister describes our childhood as idyllic, and I agree with that. We grew up in an age when kids weren't really helicoptered. It was a small town, and we were free-range kids running around, and also the parents ran the house. The parents didn't let the kids run the house, and it was a very unpressured, gentle, interesting, fun, energetic way to grow up. This was all before Title IX, and I always liked swimming. There was a swim club ran by Rosemary Dawson, Matt Mann's daughter, and it was we practiced at a junior high school, and they also ran a summer camp in Amic Harbor, Ontario. There was a boys' camp, Chicopee, and a girls' camp, Accomack, and I joined the swim team and then also ended up going to the summer camp. This just popped into my mind, but the summer camp was kind of fun. This was a long time ago, and it took a day and a half to get there. We didn't just drive to the camp. We first boarded a train in Ann Arbor, and we had our steamer trunks with us, and then the train got to Toronto the next day, and we unloaded and got on buses. So it was kind of quite a pilgrimage to get up there. As the years went by, it got easier and easier, but it was in kind of a remote area in Ontario, and I loved the place. My husband accuses me of trying to recreate my camp life the rest of my adult life, and he's right. That's exactly what I've tried to do. And anyway, it was a great way to grow up, and I loved the swimming part, and still swim today. And anyway, that's maybe my early background.
Just for the people who haven't heard of this camp before, Buck Dawson and Bob Dunkel, also International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame, were involved in running the camp. Diana Nyad, one of our honorees, spent a fair bit of time there. I think, Marty, you told me some stories at one point about sort of you and a couple of gals checking out a canoe or something, and you'd swim down to the ice cream store or the shop or something, take turns paddling and swimming, and it just sounded just ideal to me.
It was a really fun period of time in my life. That Camp Accomack and Camp Chicopee were on a widening of the Amic River. It was called Amic Lake, but really a widening of the river, and it was really ideal for marathon swimming, which is different than pool swimming. It's a different kind of rhythm, and you just have to experience it to appreciate that the feeling is entirely different. Open water swimming is just different than pool swimming, but it was available every single day when we were up there at this camp, and I did not dive off the main dock and just swim out in the middle of the lake and back by myself a mile or two or three. We'd have some safety rules. They're not overwhelming, but some, and I'd usually have a canoe that would follow me, or if I was going to take a long swim and didn't want to take a canoe, I would swim kind of around the shoreline so that if I had to stop or something, I could go over to the shore and sit there for a while. One thing about Amick Lake, I just thought about this. They used to have leeches in the lake, and they were about the size of a person's hand, maybe even a little bigger. But they would attach themselves. You'd be swimming around, then you'd come into the main dock, and you'd see a leech swimming around. You get out of the water in a big hurry, and there was a big can of salt on the dock. And if the leech did suck onto your skin, you put the salt on where the leech was attached, and then it would fall off. But that was one of the occupational hazards of lake swimming. But there was other things to do at this camp. It was not run just for marathon swimming. They had it was a competitive swim camp, but they had canoeing, they had sailing, they had tennis, basketball. We had this annual Boys Against the Girls. It's boys 12 and under, and at any age girl softball game, and the girls never won this game. The boys always won the game. But it's a wonderful time. My husband's been up there when we were married. He loves to fish, and we would drive up there and he'd fish and stand around in the black flies for 2 hours and be sick on the way home. But anyway, I love summer camp, and that's my story.
You mentioned Title IX for our international audience. We'll come to that in a second, but we kind of assume now in the Western world that there's all of this athletic competition is available for young girls and women, and there's millions of young football / soccer players out there. When you were young and swimming, tell us what kind of competition you had and how far you had to go to get a meet.
Okay. As you said, this is before Title IX, and it was in our town, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and in the state of Michigan, it was club swimming, and we swam. We rented pools. We swam in the U of M Old Student Union pool, and also in the Tappan Junior High School their swimming pool. We paid dues to support the club, and had dual meets with 3 clubs in Detroit. There was the Women's City Club of Detroit, there was Detroit Turners, and then there was a group called Patton Pool. There was also a girls swim team in Toronto and the Etobicoke area of that city. And then there were 2 teams in Indianapolis, the IAC and Riviera Swim Club, and we'd just go on road trips. We'd set up dual meets, go on road trips, and that's how that was our competition. But
a far cry from the opportunities that young women have today to compete.
Well, it certainly is, but once in a while when people will bring up, just ask me socially and at my stage in life now, what was it like? I always try to emphasize it just was wonderful. I'm not one of those people that feel like I was victimized because I didn't have opportunities. There were opportunities every day, so many I couldn't take advantage of all of them. And I'm very supportive of Title IX. It's been wonderful for generations of young girls instead of not being in sports at all. It's encouraged girls to exercise, and they've taken it on with a vengeance. One of the ironies is when I was a girl in high school, there weren't organized sports teams for girls. There were some club athletics, but not organized teams. And the only real sports opportunity for girls then was to be a cheerleader. You could cheer on the boys' teams, but there wasn't a basketball team or there wasn't a volleyball team. And one of the ironies is our older daughter, who was a fine athlete, she could have been on a lot of sports teams, but what she wanted to be the most was a cheerleader. So, there you go. It was kind of ironic, but anyway, that was her interest.
You went to university, and I think interestingly for a young woman from the middle of the United States, between a term in Mexico City and then as a professional swimmer, you managed to travel the world. Tell us about some of your travel memories, and were you literally the first person in your family or circle of friends to have that kind of travel opportunity?
I wasn't the first in my family and circle of friends, but my mom and her sister did some kind of. They went to school in the East in high school and did some kind of. I don't know. You go to Europe and you tour in college or something. But I went mostly on swimming trips. I really have. I don't consider myself a world traveler. I went to Mexico City one semester, which I would never do today. I don't think it's particularly safe, but this is a long time ago, and I went and studied art in Mexico City. And then I traveled to Europe just one time when I swam in Egypt, and then I was with Buck and I went on this trip, and he was very involved in World War II. He was General Gavin's personal aide, and so he knew Italy and he knew that part of the country very well. And we went to we toured Italy a little bit. That was kind of fun, and that really, except for Canada and I guess our swim team too. We went to Jamaica, Puerto Rico, but I'm not by any means a world traveler. That's not a realistic thing to say.
Talk to us about your professional career, and I want to start with one of your top victories. This would be the Canadian National Exhibition, 1964. You were the first woman home, second overall, and you beat Herman Vilmsey, George Park, Alfredo Camaro, Cliff Lumsden. These were four superstars in the overall marathon ranks, and you also beat Greta Anderson in Atlantic City that year. Did you realize how good you were? Or is it just kind of you had a splash and came out and didn't kind of sink in?
I don't know how to answer that exactly. I think that I'll put it this way. I think that CNE swim was probably my best swim, but that was a weird race. The water was extremely cold, and back in the day, I had a good 25, 30 pounds of hard-packed whale blubber, and didn't get so cold swimming in the water. And Herman, I think the cold just got to him. It was a triangle race, and I think Abu Heath won that. Actually, if you want to talk about some amazing accomplishment, I think Abu Heath was first in that race, and I think I was second, and then about 3 or 4, and the water was so cold. The water was, I think, like 60. And that's cold when you're in the water for, anyway, it's hypothermia, water temperature after a while. But anyway, about 3-4 days after that, he went to Chicago and swam across Lake Michigan. Is that in your records?
It is.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing.
Abu Heath was voted he was voted the sort of open water marathon swimmer of the century by the Swimming Hall of Fame a few years back. Yeah, he was certainly an incredible man.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I think the year after that, that was my experience, a cold water experience for me. And then the year after that, the Toronto officials decided to do a cross Lake Ontario swim instead of the Canadian National Exhibition. This was a triangle swim that was basically on the shore of Toronto. But they were going to do across the lake swim, and I decided not to do it. The water started out at about maybe 75, and as you crossed the lake, it got colder and colder, and this was maybe a 15-hour swim. and it got colder and colder, and nobody finished that swim. I mean, all the big names, not all of them, but most of the big names signed up for that, and everybody ended up getting out of the water. Do you have that in your records?
Which swim was this now?
It was a swim.
Which year?
I don't know. I'm not good at dates and stuff. I'm just saying that the year after that CME cold water swim, the next year, or maybe the year after, Toronto or the Canadian officials put on a different type of open water swim, and it was across Lake Ontario. It started from the eastern shore and it swam towards Toronto. And as the race progressed, the water got colder and colder. And then you're in the water at this particular race, it was a long race, and maybe 25 miles or so. And I don't really know how far, but let's say 25 miles. But so you're in the water a good 15 hours, and nobody finished that swim. I mean, some very, very good swimmers entered that, but it went from reasonably warm water to very cold water, and everybody quit the race.
What we have about that swim, and we unfortunately don't have a kind of a starting list and when people exited, but it's become famous because it was really the last of the famous Canadian National Exhibition marathons. And it looks like because of the lack of success, that marathon never recovered. It didn't come back in 65, 6. It just never became a huge race again. You also had an experience. You also had an experience in the Saguenay River up in Quebec, which I said probably was a likewise very ugly swim. I think you swam for about 9 hours and decided you'd had enough. Do you have any memories of that?
I don't remember that. No, I don't remember that. But once you bring it up, I think another really cold race in Canada was Lake St. John, but I never did that swim. But I kind of remember doing that. Yeah, but I don't. Until you brought this up, I haven't thought about it. But I think you're right. Yeah.
You left the professional ranks fairly quickly, Marty. You kind of dropped in, were an absolute superstar for a couple of years, and then you retired as a professional swimmer. Besides getting on with your life, was there anything particular that get you to retire?
I just wanted to get on with other stuff. I had met my husband. We married, started a family. I really didn't see myself traveling the world indefinitely, training, and it was a way to make some money, have some fun, see the world. And I didn't start out to be a professional swimmer. I started out as a normal pool competitive swimmer, and I think because of going to Camp Accomack and being involved in that open water stuff, it just sort of evolved into my career. Just sort of evolved into marathon swimming. I was a fair competitive swimmer, but I wasn't a great competitive swimmer. I had no national standing. I won some state championship races, but nothing nationally. And I just went into something for a while because for some weird reason I have always had a lot of endurance, and I was good at it, and I enjoyed it.
One of the things that you probably aren't aware of is earlier this year we tried to make sense out of all of the world championships over the last 100 years in open water marathon swimming. We came up with a new program we called them majors, a little bit like golf or tennis, which you're probably familiar with. So we have you down as winning 4 major championships. That would have been the 1962 and 1963 Canadian National Exhibition, 1964 around Atlantic City, and 1963 you were the World Professional Marathon Swimming Federation champion. There aren't too many swimmers in the history of the sport, Marty, that have 4 majors. So it's something that will stay on your record forever. I understand you've continued to swim now forever. Tell us, how swimming has stayed part of your life.
I love swimming, and to this day I'm a lap swimmer. it's been a struggle this year with this COVID stuff going around because I have been swimming for years at our local YMCA, and they've been shut down, and I've been scrambling looking for a pool. But I love to swim, and I just done it for years and years, and have many swimming friends and lots of fun stories, and get up first thing in the morning, and that's the first thing I do after I leave the house, and I expect to do it until they pull me out of the pool feet first.
And is it a social get your laps in, have a bit of a chat swimming, or do you sometimes look across at the person age 35 in the lane next to you and say, I'm going to give them a bit of a run for their money this morning?
Well, first of all, I'm not giving anybody a run for their money anymore. But no, it's social. It's social. I've got a lot of friends, and we just get in the pool and swim, and then we'll stop and we'll talk. And I years ago, I did some masters a long time ago, but I'm not really interested in doing that. I swim for exercise and enjoyment, and I just the older I get, the slower I get, but it's all okay. It's still fun.
Well, Marty, I want to thank you very much for your time today, and if I haven't already done it, Herman Vilmsey passed on his regards a couple of weeks ago when we talked to him.
Well, tell him I said hi too. He's just such a great guy, and good luck in your project. I'm glad that we connected, and I'm sorry we're kind of flaky in terms of doing conference calls, this and that. But good luck in your project. It's nice talking to you guys, and thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Marty.
Okay.